Hello, Monarchs. Welcome to the first video for lesson 1.7, square roots and perfect squares. So today we're going to be figuring out what square roots are, what a perfect square is, and then how to find a number's square root. Okay. So let's start with this definition at the top here. It says a number that is multiplied by itself to form a product is a square root of that product. So our first blank is going to be square root. Notice how multiplied by itself is in bold. I'm going to highlight that as well because that sounds very similar to what we were working with exponents, right? So when we find the square root of something or the cube root of something or the fourth root of something, we're really just undoing that exponent, okay? So the symbol, it looks like this. This symbol is used to represent a square root. Okay, you'll see that quite a bit. Just know that that is used to represent a square root. So when you see that over a number, just know that we want you to find the square root of that number. Okay, so here it says a, and a perfect square is what goes in this blank. Okay, a perfect square is a number whose positive square root is a whole number. So it's not a decimal or a fraction, it's a whole number. Okay, some examples of perfect squares are shown in the table below. If a number is squared but is a decimal, it would not be a perfect square. Okay, so perfect square, excuse me, is just a number whose positive square root is a whole number. Okay, so we're going to go through this chart and figure out a couple of the perfect squares that we'll be working with. Okay, so 0 times 0 is 0. 0 is a perfect square because 0 times itself is 0. So the square root of 0 would be 0. 1 times 1 is 1. So if I took the square root of 1, it would be 1. 2 times 2 is 4. So if I took the square root of 4, it would be 2. 3 times 3 is 9. Okay. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 6 is 36. 7 times 7 is 49. 8 times 8 is 64. And 9 times 9 is 81. Okay, so now, as you can see on this chart, we have a list of perfect squares. Now, every number that's in this magenta color, every number that's in this magenta color is a perfect square. So 0 is a perfect square, 1 is a perfect square, 4 is a perfect square, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, and 81 are all perfect squares. And that just means if we put them in a calculator and took the square root of them, we would get a whole number, okay? So let's look at this next blank. It says a number raised to the third power to form a product is a cube root of that product. So this is a cube root. Okay, just like if we put something to the second power, we are squaring it. If we put something to the third power, we are cubing it. If we take the square root of something, but it has a little 3 next to it, it's called the cube root of that number. Okay. Ooh, I have the yawns today. Okay. So let's look at example 1a. It just says find each root. Okay, so the way that we can do this quickly is this is just a square root. There's not a little number, so it wants us to find the square root of 49. If you look up on our chart, we have a bunch of perfect squares right here. So what I would do to find this quickly if I didn't want to use a calculator would be to look for 49. Here I see 49, and it's 7 times 7. So I know that the square root of 49 is 7. Okay, if I was to put that in a calculator, I'd also get that the square root of 49 is 7. Right? So now I have the opposite or the negative square root of 36. Notice this negative sign here. Okay, so all we are going to do is find the square root of 36 and then tack on that negative sign to it. Okay, so what I want to do is look on my chart up here. Oh, I do see 36. It is 6 times 6. We know that. So the square root of 36 is 6. But don't forget, we have to bring this negative sign down. So our answer is actually negative 6. Okay. Now let's look at 1c. We have the cube root of 125, and that's the cube root because it has that little 3 there. Okay, if there's a little number, that's the root we're finding of that number. So for c, we are finding the cube root of 125. Okay. I will show you guys the rest of this in the next video. All right, so stay tuned.